I saw this little video clip, and it's a story, I checked it out this morning. It actually happened about 2 years ago. It's a true story, and it happened in Philadelphia. So a man got a phone call from his sister that their mom was in her high-rise apartment building, 19-floor apartment building. She's on floor 15. There's a fire in the building. She can't get out of the building. So the man rushes to the building, and he tries to go in the door. And the police and the fire department won't let him in. They say the elevator is not working. He says, "That's fine, I'll take the stairs." They say, "I'm sorry, sir, you can't do that." He goes up 15 floors the outside of the building. He climbed 15 floors up the outside of the building. And when you talk to him later, what he says is, "It was my mom. Of course, I was going to do what I needed to do to check and make sure that my mom was okay." Earlier that day, he had fractured his hip. He climbed 15 floors up, checked out, his mom was absolutely fine. By that time the fire was contained. He had to climb 15 floors back down. And there was an understanding officer who said to him something like, "Sir, if you stay, I will be obliged to arrest you. If you leave, I will not." And then later you show, the clip showed him with his mom, and they had their arms around each other, and his mom was like, "I'm not surprised. He does what he needs to do." This is the energy of love that is within each of us. We have so much strength that our conscious mind usually does not allow us to be aware of. Good morning, welcome. 1,000 welcomes to you all. It is such a great joy to be here, to fill ourselves with the energy of love and the energy of light, the energy of peace. And we are meditating on heaven on earth, spiritual perfection realized. So both of those phrases come from Swami Nityananda, and we're inviting ourselves not to just hear the words, but then to go within and allow the words to come to life within us. Allow ourselves to realize the truth that is described in these words. He says, "Then what is heaven? It is the state of wholeness or perfection. The perfection of life, perfection of consciousness, perfection of love, perfection of beauty, perfection of wisdom. Heaven is the state of spiritual perfection realized within one's own pure consciousness, even while dwelling in the body temple." And so the great gift that yogis give us is demonstrating, Swami Nityananda demonstrated this with his body, his heart, his mind, his life, that it is possible to live spiritual perfection realized in a human body. And so that's, for each of us, the invitation, that we love the divine, we love the light within ourselves, we love the light within all beings so much that we are here for that adventure to live spiritual perfection realized within our own consciousness, even while dwelling in the body temple. So I'll share a few entry points, and one of the things that I would like to share first is I received a wonderful query from someone, and the query was, how may I work with Psalm 24 in light of my Kriya meditation practice? Such an incredible query. And so I'll just share, this is something that applies to anyone who practices Kriya. It's also something that applies to anyone who practices any form of meditation. It applies to anyone who loves the divine and wants to realize this energy of pure love, this energy of spiritual perfection within ourselves. So first, I will read Psalm 24 with great joy. And listen inwardly. So listen not just with the mind, but listen with the heart, and listen with your inner knowingness. "The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. For he has set the foundation thereof in the sea, and has furnished it with rivers. Who shall ascend into the mountain of the Lord, or who shall stand in his holy place? One who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not sworn by his soul falsely, nor taken an oath deceitfully. He shall receive the blessing from the Lord, and the righteousness from God our Savior. This is the generation of them that seek thy face, that proclaim thy countenance, O thou God of Jacob. It makes me cry. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be lifted up, O everlasting doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord, strong and mighty, the Lord, mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be lifted up, O everlasting doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory forever. And so I will give a few entry points to work with this. I will just first of all say it's a very astute query. So to the person who practices Kriya and who read this psalm and said, how do I work with these two together? 2 thumbs up and, whooping with joy on an inner level, because you're absolutely right. There are so many ways to work with this. And I will share some of those ways. I first want to share a couple of teachings about Kriya that come from Lahiri. And so Lahiri started teaching Kriya in India, I think it was in 1861. And he was married, he was a householder, he had 5 kids, he worked as an accountant, and he demonstrated that it's possible to realize the truth in daily life. It's possible to realize spiritual perfection in daily life, even while going to the market, going to the bank, having a spouse, having kids, going to work. It is possible to be this energy of absolute spiritual perfection in a human body. And so that's what we are here. We're here to celebrate that Lahiri did it, and to celebrate that Swami Nityananda did it, but then we're here to allow that energy of spiritual perfection to unfold through us. So Lahiri says, Kriya is the acceleration of the manifestation of God within one's own consciousness. And so for each of us, anytime we meditate, we're inviting the divine to unfold within us. And it just happens with every practice of Kriya. The unfoldment of the divine just naturally happens as we practice. Lahiri also says, without devotion, meditation does not produce its spiritual result. And so this is not just about a technique. You do receive a technique, but you also receive an incredible energy of grace, of light, of love, of buoyancy that helps lift you up when you receive the technique of Kriya. And it helps connect you with this energy of devotion. He says, love always with your soul. So no matter what is going on, if you're in contact with that soul love, you will be connected. There will be a flow of guidance. You will always know in this particular situation what response is most helpful. Are words possible and helpful? Is silence more helpful in this particular context? And I have a story about that later to share with you. He also says this, without absolute spiritual honesty, which is inner purity, the mere practice of technique does not bring spiritual revelation. And so that correlates very clearly with the teaching from the psalm, one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not sworn by his soul falsely, nor taken an oath deceitfully, that one is able to be lifted up and to come into contact with divine glory. And so if anyone is listening and you're saying, whoa, I'm out of alignment with that, then your opportunity is to have clarity and to say to yourself, I take responsibility for any ways in which my thoughts, my words, my choices have made me out of alignment with truth. And I'm willing to come back into alignment with truth. There's no outer judgment about this. It's just painful. If you are out of alignment with truth, it's painful for you within yourself. And so being in alignment with truth is joyful and freeing and healing and strengthening, and it gives such great peace. And so for yourself, just, I dedicate myself to being in alignment with truth. I love myself so much that I will let my thoughts, my words, my choices, my actions reflect truth. And I will love myself so much that I'll love myself back into harmony with that energy of truth. Welcome. I'm Swami Nityananda. If you are enjoying this talk, We invite you to like, share, and subscribe. We also invite you to subscribe to our free newsletter on Substack, available at the link below this video. Thank you for being the joy that you are. He says, the attainment of the revelation and realization of God is not limited to the few. All humans, without exception, can and must enter into the life, light, peace, and perfection of God. So this is for everybody. And I absolutely love that Lahiri had that awareness that the light of the divine dwells within all beings. And so Lahiri initiated men, he initiated women. Shocking at the time that he was doing this. He initiated people from Hindu backgrounds, he initiated people from Muslim backgrounds. Shocking at the time that he was doing this. He initiated people from different castes. Shocking at the time that he was doing this. And what qualified them, what qualifies anybody, is they're aware of the light within themselves. They want to unfold the light within themselves. They want to know, and they're open to knowing. They're open to coming into balance in relation to truth, in relation to love. There's an openness and a willingness to learn. And then as well, they're willing to cultivate this inner purity and this energy of devotion, this energy of loving with one's soul, this energy of being of service. So a couple more teachings from Lahiri, and then I'll share some entry points so that we can start to feel this directly. Lahiri says this, and you can see the correlation between this and Psalm 24. There is a sacred place within your body. It is the spiritual eye. It is the mystic door of God revelation. The spiritual eye is the inner door that leads the soul into the realm of the divine glory of God. Meditation leads us into the kingdom of the inner light. The light of God shines in perpetual effulgence at the inner door of the spiritual eye, which leads to the presence of the indwelling self. And you'll see that kind of just maps very, very clearly onto what's being described in Psalm 24. So in a little bit, I'll give us some direct entry points. We can feel that for ourselves, within ourselves. But first, I want to share that Friday, I saw this little video clip, and it's a story, I checked it out this morning. It actually happened about 2 years ago. It's a true story, and it happened in Philadelphia. So a man got a phone call from his sister that their mom was in her high-rise apartment building, 19-floor apartment building. She's on floor 15. There's a fire in the building. She can't get out of the building. So the man rushes to the building, and he tries to go in the door. And the police and the fire department won't let him in. They say the elevator is not working. He says, that's fine, I'll take the stairs. They say, I'm sorry, sir, you can't do that. He goes up 15 floors, the outside of the building. He climbed 15 floors up, the outside of the building. And when you talk to him later, what he says is, it was my mom. Of course, I was going to do what I needed to do to check and make sure that my mom was okay. Earlier that day, he had fractured his hip. He climbed 15 floors up, checked out, his mom was absolutely fine. By that time the fire was contained. He had to climb 15 floors back down. And there was an understanding officer who said to him something like, sir, if you stay, I will be obliged to arrest you. If you leave, I will not. And then later you show, the clip showed him with his mom, and they had their arms around each other, and his mom was like, I'm not surprised. He does what he needs to do. This is the energy of love that is within each of us. We have so much strength that our conscious mind usually does not allow us to be aware of. The energy of love and strength that allowed that man to climb the outside of the building 15 stories up and 15 stories down just to make sure his mom was okay, because he loves his mom and he does what he needs to do in relation to that love. That is the true nature of each of us. And so that is the energy that we are invited to live in. When you feel that energy, can you feel how much courage there is inside each of us? Can you feel how much clarity? Can you feel how much valor? Valor is not a word that we usually use these days, but the Bhagavad Gita uses that word. It's the energy of just spiritual strength. That energy of course I can do that. Of course that's impossible, and of course I can do that. And so that's for each of us when we have that feeling of, that's impossible. Connect with that mighty, indefatigable, inexhaustible love and strength that is within you. And here's where we're going to start to get to Kriya. Kriya takes that energy of mighty, inexhaustible, indefatigable love, and instead of climbing up the outside of the building, it shows us the doorway in. And right at the center of the spine, there's an elevator, and the elevator works. And we're able to get into the elevator, and we're able to smoothly and gently lift ourselves up in consciousness. And so that's what Kriya does. It takes that energy that allows the impossible to happen, inexhaustible, mighty valor and love. And it directs that energy up and down our spine with every breath of Kriya. And so let's start to talk now about Psalm 24 and a couple of the ways that we can work with this. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. So if you want, you can close your eyes and you can allow yourself to feel, this is not only talking about time and space and the whole earth being divine, the fullness of the earth, all the abundance, the beauty, the goodness, the gladness of the earth belonging to the divine, and you being part of that goodness and that gladness. But it's talking about the earth element within you. And so see if you can, at the base of your spine, just allow yourself to bring awareness that the earth element loves you. And the earth element brings you strength. And it is possible to receive the most incredible love and support, incredible beauty and goodness from the earth element. And then you can keep your eyes closed. I'm blinking mine open to read the next line. For he has set the foundation thereof in the sea, and has furnished it with rivers. And now I invite you, below the navel and above the base of the spine is the second chakra. And there, it's possible to connect with the water element. And so here too, the psalm may be read not only as referring to all of the waters in the world, but also to the water element within each of us. And so allow yourself just to be aware at the second chakra, below the navel and above the base of the spine. The water element loves me. The water element supports me. I am able to be strong and balanced and harmonious in relation to the water element. And working with these two elements helps us gain physical strength and balance and poise. It's not like a rigid kind of strength, but it's a very responsive, present strength. Working with the water element helps us gain emotional strength. And again, it's not rigid, it's flowing. It is a very balanced and present and responsive kind of strength. And so just allow yourself to feel how good it feels to feel supported and loved by the earth and supported and loved by the waters. And so keep that strong and steady foundation and balance, and then just gently move your attention and your energy and awareness up the length of the spine to the space between and above the eyebrows at the center of the forehead. And so this is where Lahiri was talking about there's a doorway that allows the individual to become aware of divine glory. Divine glory in truth is always with and within us. So we're just opening and allowing ourselves to be aware of the fullness of that divine glory, of the effulgence of that divine glory. And so a couple of entry points here. One of the things that the psalm mentions, lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be lifted up, O everlasting doors, that the King of glory may come in. So when we practice Kriya, when we practice any meditation, what we realize is that self-effort is required. It is part of the practice. It is being willing to be steady and dedicated in moving your breath up and down the spine, in being exact and regular in your meditation practice, and being steady with that. And then there is also an opening and allowing ourselves to be lifted up. And so the way that that's phrased in the psalm, lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be lifted up, O everlasting doors. So as you keep the strength and the steadiness of yourself in relation to the earth element and the water element, that naturally helps energy smoothly rise up the length of the spine to the space between and above the eyebrows at the center of the forehead. And here you're just open. You are lifting yourself up, and you are open to allowing yourself to be lifted up. And so I'm going to read that line of the psalm 3 times. And for each of us, it's just, I open and I allow myself to be lifted up. I'll leave us in silence a little bit, and then I'll continue to share some teachings after that. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be lifted up, O everlasting doors, that the King of glory may come in. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be lifted up, O everlasting doors, that the King of glory may come in. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be lifted up, O everlasting doors, that the King of glory may come in. This is a practice that you clearly can return to as often as you like, as you practice Kriya or as you practice any meditation. I have a quick story to share about Lahiri. Lahiri guided his students to allow themselves to be lifted up after their Kriya practice. And so the Kriya practice is the part that we can do. We can lift ourselves up. We can lift up our heads. And then to allow yourself after your meditation practice to be in the stillness, so that you can allow yourself to be lifted up. And so that was one of the things that he most guided his students to realize was the joy of stillness. And a word that he used for this is tranquility. There's a story about this that Lahiri was invited. It's kind of like a false invite, if that makes sense. He was invited to a spiritual gathering by some learned people who were working on the level of theories, doctrines, and words. So Swami Shankarananda says, theories, doctrines, and words are empty when the truth appears and when divine love fills the heart to overflowing. And so these people who invited him wanted to just argue with him. They wanted to stay on the level of theories, doctrines, and words. And so one of them prepared an argument about how Vishnu was the best. Another one prepared an argument about how Krishna was the best. Another one prepared an argument about how Shiva was the best. Another one prepared an argument about how the Divine Mother was the best. Swami Shankarananda would say, they're all the best. They're all beautiful expressions of the divine. So the way that this happened with Lahiri, and they kind of set this up in advance, right? They were like, okay, you prepare Shiva, I'll do the Divine Mother, he'll do Krishna. And they invited Lahiri. So Lahiri walks into this space, and Lahiri is in the energy of tranquility. Lahiri was always in the energy of tranquility. That was primary to him. And so he sits down, they receive him with courtesy, and they say, "Tell us, on what deity do you meditate?" Lahiri responds with silence. Someone else says, "So what do you meditate on? What deity is your chosen spiritual ideal?" Lahiri responds with silence. And a third time they ask, "What is your chosen spiritual ideal? On what deity do you meditate?" And Lahiri says, "I meditate on tranquility." And one of the people who's there asks him, "I don't understand. What do you mean you meditate on tranquility?" And Lahiri says, "You do not understand, and it would not be possible to tell you in words." Everyone remains silent. And so the gathering remains silent, and at the end, he departs, and there is courtesy expressed. And so the story is a very charming one because it tells us when we are in that energy of tranquility, it actually disarms. There's no argument in him. There's nothing to argue about because he is just being that energy of tranquility. And it's reminding us that this is possible, like very clearly. He was aware of the dynamic in the room. Very clearly. He knew that stillness and silence was the best possible response in that particular situation. And for each of us, that's a wonderful invite for us to practice discernment. What words are most helpful when? And are there cases where radiating blessings and being the energy of tranquility is actually what would be most helpful in that particular case? And then for each of us, if we become aware of any of that energy of, you could call it like debating theories, doctrines, and words, whatever you want to call it, tune into being open to tranquility from within yourself. And when you're in contact with that energy of tranquility within yourself, it gives you, remember that strength that allowed that man to climb up the outside of the 15-story apartment building. It gives you connection with that strength. It helps you achieve what seems to be impossible. It also helps you, I came across a couple of teachings from Swami Nityananda. He says, if you are going through tumultuous changes, or if you are aware that society or the world are going through tumultuous changes, love yourself in the midst of those tumultuous changes. And that allows you to connect with the energy of love, which helps move you into the energy of creativity. It helps connect you with the energy of what you would like to help make visible in time and space. So if you feel tumultuousness, choose self-love and choose to align with love. Choose to align with the energy of creativity. Choose to allow that strength that allowed that man to climb up the outside of the building to lift you up from within, so that you are so filled with this energy of light, this energy of divine glory, that there's no argument in you. The way that there was no argument in Lahiri, there's what can you argue about if directly tranquility is your reality? And it is able to share, I also want to say, Lahiri very clearly was able to share this in words with his students. And so his students were those who were open. His students were those who were willing to learn. His students were those who were not caught up in theories, doctrines, and words, but who said, I want to go within. I want to take the elevator. I don't want to stay on the outside. I want to go within, and I want to do what I can to lift myself up, but then also remember the deep importance after you practice Kriya or after you practice any meditation. The point of the technique is that it introduces you to the light and the love that is already there within you. It introduces you to stillness. And the transformation happens as you come into contact with that light, that love, that stillness. That's what lifts you up. Just simply allowing yourself to be in that energy of light in that energy of love, in that energy of stillness. And then there is just open-heartedness. Even if you're aware, like clearly Lahiri was aware of the tumultuousness in that room, there was just non-engagement. And with that non-engagement, it just dissipated the tumultuousness in that room. And so that is an example of a way that it is possible to be a master yogi in the midst of daily life. And so for each of us, this is just, it's our practice for now. How may I be master of myself in daily life, master of my choices, master of my thoughts, master of my words, so that always in the midst of whatever I discern within myself or anyone else or the world, I'm loving myself, I'm loving the divine, and I'm so loving myself and the divine that I continue to open to that energy of tranquility, that energy of spiritual perfection, that energy of love. And I just allow that energy of tranquility, that energy of spiritual perfection, that energy of love to share through me in the ways that the divine wants that energy to share through me. And so thank you, because you all are doing this. It is absolutely magnificent. And anytime that you connect with that energy of tranquility, that energy becomes available. So waves of that energy radiate out, and then it becomes available in consciousness to everyone who is calling, who is crying out for that energy of peace, that energy of confidence, that energy of valor, that energy of strength, that energy of spiritual succor. Thank God, and God bless us all.